Winter is back. And again, this is a severe test for millions of Ukrainians, both for those who must be ready for blackouts and especially for those who defend our country in trenches. The war in Ukraine continues, and we are already entering a very difficult winter period for the second year. What has changed over the past year? How do you keep from freezing when war occurs in winter, and how does the cold influence combat? Explore these questions with United 24 Media. Many conflicts of the past were fought during winters. The war between the USSR and Finland was even called the Winter War. Back then, despite the enormous advantage of the Soviet Union, Finns successfully resisted. The USSR lost at least 126,000 soldiers, 5 times more than its adversary. Finns effectively used weather conditions, equipping their troops with skis or using deer to transport mortars. Both sides have to take into account the challenges of winter warfare, and there are a lot of nuances to consider. For example, it's easier to defend than attack, as the fortified structures retain heat at least a little. Also, snow effectively amplifies sound, decreasing the chances of an unexpected attack. Oddly enough, hydration might also become a problem. In the cold, human feels less thirsty, despite sometimes losing even more liquid than usual. War demands nearly impossible effort, and winter makes it even harder. There are 3 key elements of winter warfare that should be considered: clothing and camouflage, use of equipment, and fortification. The typical green-brown camouflage used by fighters throughout the year is ineffective with the first snow. In winter, soldiers, equipment, and even airplanes are painted white with dark patterns. Still, moving undetected becomes a real issue. Snow leaves highly visible tracks, making it much easier to follow the movement of vehicles or people. Hiding is not the only priority in winter. Another important task is not to freeze. The average winter temperature in Ukraine is sub-zero. Under such conditions, the quality of soldiers' clothes is critical. Thankfully, apart from Ukraine stocks, the USA, Germany, Lithuania, and other countries have sent tens of thousands of winter uniform sets. Spending days in the cold requires wearing 5 layers of clothes: regular underwear, thermal underwear, a sweater, a uniform, and a jacket. All these items are not a whim, but a necessity. In summer, a wounded soldier can wait a long time before evacuation arrives, while in winter, even an hour spent on the ground often becomes fatal. Last winter once again showed how cynical Russia is. The enemy systematically hit civilian infrastructure. Missile strikes were carried out on power plants and networks responsible for heat and light in peaceful cities. During this year, Ukraine significantly strengthened its anti-aircraft defense capabilities. Ukrainian troops have mastered many effective Western air defense systems provided by our partners. We saw immediate results. Back in May of this year, thanks to the Patriot air defense system, it was possible to shoot down the Kh-47 Kinzhal ballistic missile over Kyiv, a first experience for the armed forces of Ukraine. And since then, Patriot has shot down a total of 15 hypersonic missiles of this type. Gepard anti-aircraft gun, which Ukraine received from partners, effectively demonstrated itself in the destruction of enemy drones. In general, drones are something that will threaten Ukraine in large numbers, so more Gepard-type weapons are needed to destroy them. Imagine breaking through enemies' defense lines and advancing. Now you need to fortify your new positions. When the temperature is below zero, you have to dig through frozen soil to form trenches. Later on, you somehow need to insulate them and warm them up. Electric heaters or simple wood stoves are used for this purpose. However, you need to be careful with them, as hot objects are well visible through thermal visors, instantly demasking your positions.
Це дуже тяжко, і в бронежилеті, всій амуніції, автомат за спиною, і копати, постійно копати, це дуже тяжко. А потім йти на ночну зміну і там стояти біля 16-градусний мороз, дивитися в тепловізор, приходити декілька годин відпочити і знову йти копати, це дуже тяжко.
Ukrainians have battled Russians since the hybrid invasion of 2014, so they have experience in winter warfare. They also exchange experience with NATO soldiers, as the alliance has trained for combat in the cold for a long time. However, there are also unpredictable factors such as the weather. If last winter was generally relatively mild, it is difficult to say what this winter will be like. The armed forces of Ukraine are preparing for two weather scenarios. The first scenario is rain that can make things difficult. In particular, such conditions can cause the rate of advancement of vehicles to decrease. Even UAVs cannot be used in such weather. Frost is a completely different scenario. In this case, the ground will remain frozen and heavy machinery will be able to drive on it. Ukrainian defenders are currently preparing for the cold weather. They insulate dugouts, stock up on heaters, and various means of heating. Equipment is also being prepared because it's necessary to replace lubricants and various fuel additives and adapt camouflage. However, it's not that simple. Army manuals of the USA provide a special method of vehicle movement, where the lead vehicle sets the initial track and the following vehicles offset to flatten and widen the trail. When the temperature is 0 or +1 Celsius, the snow starts melting, creating a mash where everything except for tracked machinery gets stuck. So the saying that the war is fought along the roads becomes especially important. Frost can kill just as well as a bullet or shrapnel. At this very moment, Ukrainians fight against both prevailing enemies and the winter. Support forces of good, so that nobody has to celebrate Christmas in trenches ever again.